Is there a point of no return, though? I mean, when nature's gone awry and you can't.
Well, sometimes people will say, Abraham, I've jumped out of an airplane. I'm at 40,000 feet. I have no parachute. What should I do? And we say, hang on, it will be over soon. And then there is a reemergence in the non-physical, which is blissful and wonderful. And so in the broader scheme of things, there is never a point of no return. But you might come to the end of this venue before you really needed to, if you are not lining up your energy. In other words, there are a lot of, when people, no one gets a disease on purpose, and no one dies from a disease on purpose. But sometimes people get so scattered in their energy and so out of control and so separated from the well-being that would be there if they weren't doing that thing that they do, that it's keeping them from being in alignment with it, that it takes them out. And so from a physical standpoint, you might say, well, that looked like a point of no return because that person died and they're not coming back in this body at this time. And we say, from broader perspective, there is never a point of no return because we are eternally joyful beings. But that's why we recommend that you begin to pay attention to the way you feel. Sometimes people will say, well, Abraham, about this guidance thing, I'm not sure I know about my emotions. I'm not sure how to let my guidance work for me. And we say, there isn't one of you who doesn't know the difference between how that feels and how that feels. It just has to matter to you. And the more you play with it, the more good you get at being able to decipher the difference between these emotions. So then people say, all right, well, I'm sitting on a park bench and I'm feeling afraid that there's a monster in the bushes. And I don't know if there's really a monster in the bushes or if I'm just afraid that there's a monster in the bushes. And we say, doesn't make any difference. From our vantage point, we would advise you, move away from the monster. In other words, don't sit there in your fear. Do something to make yourself feel less fear, you see. And so if that means going someplace else or going with someone else, do something that makes you feel better. If it means you could sit there and acknowledge if there were really a monster in the bushes, the well-being that is me, I wouldn't find myself to this bench. So I know that there is nothing going on there. I've just got a vivid imagination from whatever I was watching on television. And if you can sit there for a minute or two and talk yourself into feeling better, then you don't have to get up and physically run away. But what all of the work is about finding ways, and sometimes you have to take an action to feel better. Sometimes you can just move your thought and feel better. But in every case, the answer is the same. Try to lean in the direction of what gives you a sense of relief. And as you make that your dominant intention, things start to clean up for you. You see, every subject is really two subjects: what is wanted and lack of it. And in every moment, you are, with your attention to the subject, you are moving in the direction of something more wanted or less wanted. In other words, it's never just standing still. You are always moving toward something. And you can tell by the way you feel how you're going to like it when you get there. If you're consistently worried about something, you're not going to like it when you get there. If you're consistently elated about something, you're really going to like it when you get there. And the work of creation is about directing your thoughts to more and more pleasing things so that you train yourself into a pattern of thought that nets you better results when law of attraction acts upon your thought. When you focus upon something, you activate the thought. And if you focus upon it for 17 seconds, only 17 seconds, it's activated enough that it will attract another thought like it. And if you hold that thought for another 17 seconds, another thought is drawn to it until if you have held your thought on something for 68 seconds, now universal forces have been set into motion and law of attraction is engaged and you are moving more steadily on your way to it. Sometimes people will say, Abraham, it came out of the blue. And we always say, no, it didn't. It didn't come out of the blue. You've been marching toward it with your thoughts. You've been marching toward it with your vibration. It didn't come out of the blue. If it feels like it came out of the blue, you're right. You are not in touch with the way you have been feeling. You have not known consciously that the way you feel matters. And that's really the whole point about what we're talking about here. So every subject is two subjects. It's like picking up a stick called physical body. And on one end of it is wellness, and on the other end of it is sickness. And so project that stick out there into your future experience and realize that as you are, in every moment that you're thinking about the subject of health, you're moving to one end of that stick or the other. And as you are feeling mostly good, then you're moving toward manifestations that are mostly good. And if you're feeling mostly worried, then you are moving toward manifestations that are more worrisome. And people will say, well, Abraham, but what do? I already have the diagnosis. And we say, doesn't make any difference. You've still got a fresh new stick every moment of every day. You can list in the direction or fork in the direction of what feels good to you, or you can fork in the direction of what does not feel good to you. And those moment-to-moment choices are what make up your life. So if you decide to take control of those moment-to-moment choices, and you catch yourself in the middle of a statement that is about something you don't want, and you rework it so that it feels better, and next time you rework it again, before you know it, you're thinking and feeling about things going well for you, and life shows up in that way. Jerry and Esther will get on a roll where they'll say, we are so in the zone. It feels like everything just moves for them effortlessly. They were driving across from Malibu day before yesterday, and as they were driving across, Esther and Jerry decided that they would go eat at their favorite restaurant, and they realized that they should make a reservation, but it was hard to figure out since they had still 200 miles to drive and they didn't know how they would dovetail with the traffic. And so Esther said, well, I'm just going to make a reservation and let's just see how it turns out. So she called to make the reservation, and the woman said, it's this or this. And the second one was very much too late, and the first one was earlier than they really thought that they could do with absolute comfort. And Esther said, all right, if we see that we can't make it, we'll call you well in advance. We'll take that early spot. And so they drove, the traffic parted, they parked the bus, everything went effortless. They hooked up the hoses, they changed their clothes, they got in the car, and they drove into the restaurant, and they had 30 seconds to spare. And Esther said, it's like everything in the universe is cooperating with us to give us the unfolding that we are coming to expect. In other words, the more things go well, and the more you acknowledge they go well, and the more you expect them to go well, then the more they go well. In other words, it's just a vicious circle of well-being that surrounds you wherever you are, you see. And you can get in that cycle of well-being or in that cycle of not well-being. The thing that we're wanting to impress upon you is that if you will stop letting the evidence of what is dictate the vibration that you offer, and you will start deliberately offering a vibration because you're choosing it because it feels better, you can turn anything around, and you can turn it around in a very short period of time. You can't today necessarily deposit a whole bunch of extra money in your bank account, but today you can stop worrying about there not being enough. And when you stop worrying about there not being enough, more starts flowing. But 99% and more of every creation is complete vibrationally before you begin to see the physical evidence of it. And so what you've got to do is get your kicks from the improved feeling, not because the evidence has showed itself, because the evidence can't show itself until you consistently improve the way you feel, you see. So what deliberate creating is about, what the art of allowing is about understanding that I can control how I feel, and the circumstances that have manifested aren't so important that they deserve my undivided attention. I should be able to extract from what's happening a picture of what I would prefer, and if I will turn my undivided attention to what I prefer, the universe must deliver that to me. It is law. So it works out like this. Contrasting experience, which means some of what I want and some of what I don't want. And out of what I don't want comes clarity about what I want. If I turn my attention to what I want, and I talk about why I want it, and I remember things like it, and I imagine it, and I find vibrational alignment with it until I am a vibrational match to it, then it must manifest. And granted, it takes a little time, but it will manifest. And when it does, with the manifestation comes a new vantage point, a new set of circumstances, a new set of contrasting experiences, and the potential for yet new desires. And so that's what we mean when we say you all will live constantly in the crack, because you will never stop launching a new idea, and you will never stop moving toward it. And when you get it, that the joy of life is in the fun of closing that gap. When Jerry says to the salesperson in the department store, we're looking for something to want, he is telling her the meaning of life. He's telling her what life really means. What life means is finding a goal and then hanging my star on it and then achieving vibrational alignment with it. The joy of life is in the closing of the gap. And once the gap's closed, oh, whoopee, you say yippee for a minute. But what life really is the thrill of closing that gap. It's the conscious awareness of the process of living life, isn't it? So you could be in the middle of a not good relationship having a wallop of a good time as you're improving it. You could be in a body that doesn't look the way you want it to look or feel the way you want it to feel and be having a very good time as you are experiencing the metamorphosis of your body. You could be living in a country that doesn't seem to be going in the direction that you would personally like it to go, and you could be having a very good time as you are imagining it coming into alignment, and as you imagine it and then begin watching the pendulum swing, it's going to be thrilling to you as you see the angst that you lived that caused desire, and then the focus that you held bringing about real change, you see. It's fun to be a deliberate creator, and it is miserable to create by default. It's fun to know that the universe supports you, and it is miserable to believe that you have been left out. It is delicious and fun to recognize that you are so free that you can create anything, and it is miserable to feel like you are in bondage. And it is delicious to know that you have power over your life, and it is miserable to believe that someone else is dictating to you. But they're not going to give up their perceived power. You have to take it back. And the way you take it back is by meaning, whether you say it to them or not, I don't care what you think. I care how I feel. And everything I do is about improving the way I feel. Because my improved feeling is my improved point of attraction. And my improved point of attraction means improved life experience. Every time, no exceptions.